Now, we got a lot of great topics we're going to get to coming out of NFL Week 12, talking about the playoff race, the MVP race. Teams are trying to get better position within their division, but I don't think nothing right now is really more interesting than this topic right here. The Pittsburgh Steelers went 58 games without eclipsing 400 total yards of offense. And in the first game after firing offensive coordinator Matt Canada, they eclipsed that mark. So we're going to talk about this game today. The Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Cincinnati Bengals 16-10. Kenny Pickett on the day. 24 of 33, 278 yards, no touchdowns. We're going to talk about that as well. But I think when we come into this, the biggest thing we've been looking at with Kenny Pickett, even if we feel that he's not ever going to be one of the top 5 to 10 best quarterbacks in the game of football. Regardless of, I think, where you sit with Kenny Pickett, you want to see him with a fair opportunity, with the best shot and the best really scenario around him, offensive play calling to the weapons around him. I think when you pair a Pickens with a Harris, with the Warren, a Deontay Johnson, you want to see a competent play caller who can put those guys in the best position. I've always said it. I think they have some of the best talent. We can go Freiermuth. We can go some of those guys on the offensive line, but today we saw some of that. What it looks like when they have good play calling and the team is playing for that play caller. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren on the day, the combination of those two, 28 carries, 148 yards. What we've seen, Jalen Warren has really been a guy who's been carrying the offense on his back. I talk about those long distance runs, the big time plays, catching the ball out of the backfield. But to see Najee Harris coming in and being utilized and having the impact that he was supposed to have when you draft a running back in the first round in a league that doesn't like doing that at all. I think today we saw just a little bit more. It was something different about this offense today. Pat Freiermuth, 9 receptions, 120 yards. And here's what Kenny Pickett had to say when asked, what's the biggest difference without Matt Canada calling the offensive plays? Let's take a listen to the soundbite.
Coach Falk did a great job. Shout out to Coach Sully. I think he called a hell of a game. I think we all came together, persevered some adversity this weekend. It felt great to come on the road and get a win.
And I think just to hear that quote from Kenny Pickett, it goes to show a feeling of new life within the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. This is on the practice field. This is in the practice facilities. This is on game day. Hearing a motivation, understanding you feel confident in this guy. You're not just hearing words that we can't go out on the football field and execute some of these things. I thought we saw pretty solid execution outside of the red zone. But we got to remember, on November 21st, the Pittsburgh Steelers fired offensive coordinator Matt Canada. At the time of this firing, and this goes back to before he was the offensive coordinator, the Steelers had gone 58 games in Canada's entire offensive coordinator tenure with Pittsburgh without eclipsing 400 total yards. So you go your entire stretch of being the offensive coordinator for a team. You don't eclipse 400 total yards. And this goes to identity. Is it a passing football team? Is it a running football team? And I think we didn't really get to see an identity. But today we saw some of those things with Kenny Pickett. We saw some of those things with Najee Warren. How they want to get those different playmakers involved. I think major hats off to the play callers today. But this season, and this is talking about before Matt Canada actually got fired, they were 28th in yards per game and 28 in points per game. So you look at two of those things, that's bottom 20 in the league and those offensive statistics. And like I said, do you run the football? Do you pass the football? These are questions we have to have when we talk about a team like this. And in the first game without Matt Canada, they hit that mark. Now, for Mike Sullivan calling the plays today, I think it's huge when Kenny Pickett feels comfortable. They attack the middle of the football field. This is something we've been talking about. Even with the play calling and the route concepts, we see a team that doesn't want to attack the middle of the field. Those are where the linebackers at. Those are where some of those box safeties are. And that's where you want to create those mismatches with the Pat Freiermuth, with the Deontay Johnson. And when you predicate an offense on going outside on perimeter, it's just not fundamentally sound. A lot of the offenses we think about, we can go Shanahan, we can go Mike McDaniel. Those are offenses which attack the middle of the field with the Tua Tagovailoa, with a Brock Purdy. You don't have to have a lively arm to hit some of those crossers, hit some of those digs, some of those in-breaking routes, some of the posts. That doesn't take an elite quarterback. That doesn't take the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows. It takes just a guy who can make the decisions, understand what the coverage is in front of him, and get the football there. Got to think about it. Kenny Pickett was the only first-round quarterback drafted in his draft class, and that was because he was the most ready, and they felt at the time, if we give this guy the play calling, if we give this guy the pieces around him, he can be competent within this system, and they still have an elite defense on the other side of the ball. And I think there's a world when we could still assess what we saw today talking about the offense. You have a Mike Sullivan calling the plays. You have an Eddie Faulkner coordinating those plays. Mike Tomlin making a change for a team who doesn't really make in-season changes or out-of-season changes. They like to keep things within the foundation, within the structure, and then going on to the performance on the football field. I think we can still fairly credit that and give hats off to those guys. We're still talking about there's room for improvement. We look at the defensive side of the ball for the Cincinnati Bengals. Not the best defense. They're bottom 20 in a lot of major statistical categories. We talk about scoring defense, yards allowed, pass defense, rush defense. We can go to them all in their bottom 20. So I think that has to play into it. But offensively, of course, you have no Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow doesn't play defense, but I still think it's something to talk about within the context. However, I think it's fair to say that we saw something different. We never got the feeling, I think really with all of these games so far in this season, you felt that even if the defense played lights out, I go to the Jacksonville game, I go to the Raiders game, even games where they won, you still feel like if TJ Watt, he gets a strip sack, they go score. You still felt that the offense in the biggest moments when they needed them the most, they're probably going to go 3 and out. They're probably going to have a terrible play call. They're probably going to run the ball, get in 3rd and 10, pass it, do a screen pass. So I think that's what we've been seeing, but to just get a new life, get a breath of fresh air for the Steelers offense. I can't talk about how much and how important that is for the stretch of the season, the final stretch, because we look at this and say, there's a lot of things that they can be rooting for. Talking about the Cleveland Browns, talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens, there's a world where the Pittsburgh Steelers could actually win this division. And I think to have the tumultuous season that you've had thus far and still be in a position like that in the AFC North of all divisions, it just can't be quantified, the success story for what they're doing right now. And shout out to Tomlin, because even as bad as we've thought some Pittsburgh teams have been, he's not going to have a losing record. I think that's one thing we can book and talk about for him. Let me know down below, what do you guys think about it all? Is this something that we can bank on? Is this showing new signs of life, or is it more so in the team that the Pittsburgh Steelers played today? I think it's a lot of questions coming out of this topic and coming out of this discussion, but that's going to do it for today. Thank you for watching as always, and now, yeah.